Welcome to the Veterans in Politics Talk Show. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, live stream on Facebook.
God bless you. We're going to pray. Father, we come to your presence believing that you're able to do exceedingly and abundantly and above all that we ask or think. We pray for peace in the midst of this panel session. We pray for each individual that's running, that they will be able to answer the questions that are asked, and they will be able to show forth their passion and a vision and a reason why. And we pray, God, that each panel member will be able to ask those questions in wisdom and concerning the constituents that they represent. And we pray this in your matchless name. And amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Yes, Your Honor.
Easy, Tiger. No kissing up to the panel. Welcome, everyone, to the joint Veterans Endorsement interviews for non-judicial candidates. At the outset, we would like to formally recognize and thank our sponsoring organizations for making today's event possible. Judge Mary Perry, Clark County District Court Family Division Department P, and Christine Brewer, Clark County District Court Family Division Department S, Veterans in Politics International, and the Nevada Veterans Association. We also extend our sincere appreciation to our additional sponsors and community partners whose support helps ensure a professional, fair, and transparent endorsement process. We are honored to have all of you with us today. Before we begin the interviews, let's review the rules and format. First, panel members will introduce themselves by stating their names and the organization they represent. Next, each candidate will introduce themselves. Please include the office you are running for, and you may expand and explain why you are running for this position. We will then proceed to the interview portion. Please remember this is an interview and not a debate. Candidates may not ask questions of one another. All responses must be directed to the panel. In the interest of fairness to all participants, time limits will be strictly enforced. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. When you have 30 seconds remaining, you will be shown a yellow card, and when your time has expired, you will be shown a blue card. You may finish your sentence, but please then conclude your answer. After all panel members have completed their questions, each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Thank you all for your professionalism, respect, and participation, and let's begin. I'll start. My name is John Brookhagen. I'm not a veteran, but I'm proud to contribute and represent Veterans in Politics International.
Good afternoon. My name is Tam Larnard. I'm a retired Clark County School District principal and a former member of Nevada's statewide school safety committee.
Hello, my name is Patrick McCrae. I am a retired Naval Chief Warrant Officer, and I spent several years and have a master's in teaching from middle and high school.
Leslie Caliano, retired CCSD employee and Veterans in Politics International.
Chelsea Fisher. I'm here today with Nevada Veterans Association. I am also an Army veteran, and I currently serve on Nye County School Board of Trustees.
I'll finish that up. Jeff Keach here with the Deadbeat Chronicles podcast and Nevada Veterans Association. Also an Army vet, so good to bookend that, Chelsea. And glad to be here.
And David, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for trustee.
David Gomez, for School Board Trustee District D. And the reason I'm running for trustee is because we've had too many politicians get in, make endless promises that they can't fulfill, not understanding that the trustee's position is to use their bully pulpit to push the agendas with the superintendent to make sure that policies and things work for teachers, staffs, and students, and the community at whole. I'm running because, education is our grand insurance policy to liberties. And once people start to fail to realize and recognize that, at that point, they're just in it for either name recognition, money grabs, which there's not a lot of money in CCSD with trustees at $750 a month, but they're always looking for a stepping stool, and they always use our children, the families, the staff, and the schools to step above any which way they can to go to the next level. And that's not how this works. It requires passion, dedication, and the thing I've done already, 27 years of volunteerism for CCSD as Nevada Peace Alliance, and also a commissioner for AZAC and a now new bridge commissioner, where I'm actually community liaison.
Thank you very much, David. And again, my name is John Brookhagen with Veterans in Politics International. We're seeing a disturbing pattern of teacher misconduct cases in the news lately, ranging from inappropriate relationships to outright criminal behavior, while at the same time, the district is lowering barriers to bring more adults into classroom because of staffing shortages. As a trustee, you don't handle individual cases, but you do set policy and oversight. So what specific safeguards, hiring standards, and accountability systems would you push for to both protect students and ensure we are not sacrificing safety in the effort to fill classrooms?
Well, this is where the problem comes in. Everybody that applies for the job passes the background. So how can you actually tell if someone's going to do something heinous to a child or not? You just got to wait to find out, which we don't want to do. And you got to make sure that things are in place, that we monitor these things. Now, principals obviously are responsible for each and every little, what I call cities or schools. It's their duty and their job to make sure that they maintain and monitor every single staff member. And that's why they got SASs, because SASs actually make them go and do these things for whatever reason, because maybe they saw there was something there. Now, enforcing a policy that ensures that we get rid of bad characters in our school district, it's something that has to be collective across the board. So I can introduce a million policies, but I also need other trustees to vote with me on policies that safeguards children's and staff and their bad conduct. We do see a lot of shortage in the school district. And at this point right now, because we, as well, I can't say we, they kind of misappropriated a lot of the funds with the bonds that came over, and things have been misappropriated at this point. We now see teacher shortage, and we see surpluses that we shouldn't see, because they should have taught them and made sure that they were well equipped and prepared to make sure that they secure these positions for these staff members.
Good afternoon, David. Tam Larnard, again, Veterans in Politics International. Our new superintendent, Joan Ebert, has been on the job for just a little over a year. What grade would you give her performance so far? Not just her, but her and her team. And how would you justify whichever grade you give her?
Well, my expectancies for Joan Ebert will remain the same, and that is to hit the ground running. And that was what I told her when I met with her. The grade that I would give her right now is a 7. And the reason I would give her a 7, because she went after the money she needed to go to make sure she secured certain things for our school district. Some of her team members she'd hired or brought in that we didn't pick as a superintendent, she brought in as a deputy superintendent, which means that I don't agree with that, because obviously the public did not agree with that as well. So bringing a person in that everybody didn't agree with kind of puts a big question mark above our head on what you're doing and why you're doing it. When we look at what we expect of her as a superintendent and what the grading system is, I'm pretty sure that everybody in Clark County has seen the damper of past superintendents. And I don't mean all the way to Walt Ruffles or back to Brian Cram. You know, I'm talking about current superintendents that didn't know how to manage money, didn't know how to take care of our schools, and didn't know how to orchestrate a plan where everybody knows exactly what they're doing. And at this point, I will remain with the 7 until she shows me something more and different that supports our students, our staffs, our families, and the community as a whole, because the community is responsible for paying the bond back that they messed up as well. So, thank you.
Hello, David, and welcome to the interview. I'm Patrick McCray, and I'm representing the Nevada Veterans Association. A little scenario for you. Okay. Not a tough one, not a hard one. I've actually read your website and have a fair idea of your background, hence the scenario question. You or one of your representatives comes to my door I'm in your district. I'm a grandfather. I have 3 grandchildren that go to school in Las Vegas. Convince me that you deserve my vote. 90 seconds.
Wow. Okay. Well, the reason I'm going to convince you that I deserve your vote is because I have done what nobody else has done. And I have dedicated 27 years of my life for free as a volunteer to make sure that I backed up support staff, defended bus drivers, and stepped in even when we have a right to work state for union workers to represent these people, they still choose not to have them. I have dealt with investigative Tories with other members, and I've also helped parents navigate through the system before COSA came along, how to get their kids zoned and transfer to the school of their choice and liking. I would convince them that I always thought what's in the best of the interests of, I would look at, when I was a zoning commissioner for AZAC, I would look at where the area is and how the people in that area feels about it. So I always looked at the constituents or the people in the community to say, listen, what is it that you want and what do you want to see? Because by doing that, I have to listen. I'm not in position because I place myself in position. I'm in position because people like you vote me into position to make sure that I do the right thing and keep accountability and transparency and full fruition of what we need to do. Am I going to say that I'm perfect? No, I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes. There's a human element behind a lot of things. But I will promise that I will listen to you. I will open my door. I will have open door policy, and I will make sure that if I'm in that admin building and you show up, you're more than welcome to come up there without all the red tape.
Leslie Caliano, Veterans in Politics. I have all these questions. I don't know which one to ask first. Do you support the continuing of CCSD assisting students with gender transitioning? If no, will you as a trustee work to remove or keep Regulation 5138?
I do not support that. My God conscience and my faith and belief system doesn't allow me to do that. To each their own prerogative, but that is not an education thing. When we look at school, it says education. It doesn't say mutilation. I don't never remember going to school and hearing about mutilation. Sex ed was a little extreme then, but you had to opt in to see the things that you saw back then. Sex ed was one of those things back then. But would I fight to get rid of those policies? Yes, I will. Because transgenderism doesn't belong in our schools, boys and girls sports and girls and boys sports, however it goes, and as well as the bathrooms. They don't belong in there. This is not what education is about. We are mismanaging the way that we educate people and allowing the minority and not the majority to speak on the merits that we need to listen to make sure that education is sound. Children need to get out of school ready to exit, not ready to change their gender, not ready to have an ideology to have someone else give them that ideology. When we look at children, we have to remember children are susceptible. So a lot of people's ideas should not be in the school district unless it is pertaining to curriculum or education, period.
Chelsea Fisher, thank you again for being here today. Mine are going to be way more specific, obviously, because I am currently on our school board. I promise to try and go easy. One of the most important questions I think that I have for trustees is, have you ever read all of the NRS which govern all school board trustees? Or how much knowledge do you have?
I have read a lot of the NRS that governs school board trustees. I think it's in the 300s, 388. I can't remember exactly where, but I'm not a retainer of the law because it's a lot of content to remember. But I do know where the balance of where a trustee can and cannot do what. I understand that trustees are voted in members to create policies, to make governing policies, and to do things that are in accordance with education. And also make sure they govern their superintendent. So as far as knowing exactly specifics on what law and what pertaining to what law it needs to be enforced, I don't and I cannot tell you exactly where it's at and how it sits. But I do know that a trustee's responsibility is to the public, is to the students, is to the the staff members and any other members of the community that actually put them in that position. Will I learn everything at that point about the law and the governing law balances and what we need to have in place? Yeah, I will, because I can't go in there second guessing myself and wondering if what somebody is telling me is true, accurate, or is supportive and what measures they want to try to push. Am I going to make sure that I'm informed and educated on those matters? Yes, I will, when it comes to the things that pertain to those issues.
David, hey, sir, Jeff Keach here with Nevada Veterans Association. Do you believe students in Clark County School District are graduating with a strong understanding of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, branches of government, and civic responsibility?
The answer is no. Very simple. They're not going in learning any of these things. They're learning about what they should do in protesting and how to get outside of the school and go and walk around and say derogatory things to government officials or about government officials. They're learning things that they can't even use because the current administration is not enforcing to make sure that these things are in place, where they learn the Constitution, they learn the Bill of Rights. They should be adopted into the curriculum, and it should be enforced with obviously the history lessons and all the other things, and civics and government and everything else. But are they learning it? Are they leaving with this information? No, they're too worried about when are you going to protest? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do X, Y, and Z? Should they be informed and well knowledge of this information? Absolutely, because this is our Constitution. This is what gives us our freedoms, our rights. And these people had a great idea when they came up with this to make sure that government doesn't overstep their boundaries. And most people don't know this. And most of the kids don't even know how to fill out a FAFSA application when they get out. So let alone are they going to remember any of the information pertaining to the Constitution or Bill of Rights when they're not sharing it, teaching it, or enforcing it because of the values of certain type of teachers that teach these type of curriculums.
John Brookhagen, Veterans in Politics International. And I'd like to piggyback on the ladies' questions. Leslie was asking about gender identity and stuff like that. And Chelsea was talking about how the school board is dictated to go about their job. And a lot of times I've seen candidates in the past decade get into the position thinking that they're going to change the world, only to realize that the Nevada legislature has a lot more influence on what happens in the schools than the school board itself. So school boards are often tasked with implementing policies set by the legislature. In your view, where's the line between compliance and leadership? Can you give a specific example of how you would exercise independent judgment to drive meaningful change within CCSD rather than simply executing state directives, which has been a hurdle for other people who thought they would get into the position and make a change?
Wow. Okay. So how I would make a change is use the facts. I have to use the facts. I can't go off of the merits of what I believe or how I believe in what, or what my grandpa taught me or what my grandmother taught me. I have to base everything on facts when it comes to changing policies and making sure that they work. As far as transgenderism and all those different things, that has nothing to do with education. So when I have to convince or even try to enforce a policy that proves to them that this has nothing to do with anything that we are set in stone to do here in the school district, at that point, I'm not going to promise that I'm going in there with all guns blazing and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to change this policy and I promise you it's going to be done the first day I step into the school district. That's not going to happen. You got to remember, we're about to get some more voting members on that board in June, or I think July. And those voting members, I don't really know what their opinions are on some of these things, and they're appointed. So I don't even know how we're even going to work that one out. But I will stand strong. I will stand against those things like transgenderism. I will stand on the merits of making.
In 10 seconds, can I just ask you while you brought it up, do you agree with the appointment of trustees, or do you believe this should be a totally democratic thing as it's been in the past?
I believe it should be as it's been in the past. I mean, no city should have the jurisdiction or county to be able to come in and say, this is now your new appointee because they got a legislative member to do a bill to pass something and rub shoulders and make promises and endless promises to God knows who.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Tam Larnard, Veterans in Politics International. David, the Clark County School District has been hemorrhaging enrollment since its peak in 2017-18 school year. They've lost approximately 43,000 students. Some may point to a lower birth rate. However, the reality is we know that thousands of families in Clark County have voted with their feet and have enrolled their children in charter schools. If you're elected, what would you suggest to your one employee, Superintendent Ebert, to try to turn this trend around and convince families to vote with their feet and come back to the Clark County School District?
Well, I can't convince her to do anything except tell her the facts, like I go back to. Programs like CTEs, certain programs actually bring these kids back. But when you take away programs, when we had our bond money in 2000, I think it was in 5, and then it went all the way to 13, 14, around there. They were supposed to build these schools out, and they were supposed to make sure that they were built out properly and start also building more schools because of the overpopulation that was hitting our valley. We were getting 11,000 students per year. We lost 65,000 students to charter schools, which makes charter schools the second biggest school district in our state. But the question is, why is that happening? Because we don't have the programs or the things that people find attractive for their student to want to learn or even go learn inside of the school district. How I would convince her to do this, and this is very difficult at this moment right now because we're doing something called Facility Master Plan, and the Facility Master Plan is actually surplusing teachers and closing down certain schools in the West Side and East Las Vegas. So how am I going to convince her to work on this? We have to be designation district number 1. It should be the first choice, and that's what actually helps build our economy. But when we water it down with a lot of these dead-end policies and things with sexual transgenderism, then obviously parents that have a right head on their shoulders don't want their student in a classroom where education is not being taught. But we need to work on programs like trade programs, getting them ready again to exit. We got to get them ready to make sure that we're sending them into a world that is going to be mean, it's going to be nasty, and it could be ugly at times. But we have to prepare these students to make sure that they get out and they're ready to hit the ground running, because when we don't do things like that, then we end up with situations that we're in right now.
Again, I'm Patrick McCray, Nevada Veterans Association. Kind of a scenario, but not. Say you get elected to the board. Okay. You're on the board. You're going to have disagreements. Politics to me is how to manage disagreements. Who are you going to consult over disagreements with? The board members, the staff, your superintendent, and why?
Who would I consult with over disagreements? They have a right to say no. They have a right to abstain from their vote. They have a right to say anything they can disagree with. And I have to respect that they do disagree, but that's when I come back with facts. And then I will go and consult with the legal and say, is this or is this not true? Can we make sure that we are informing people correctly so that when we do make something that could put us in a liable situation, or could be, we need to make sure that they're informed so that the decisions they make when it comes time for election, we'll let people know, listen, this trustee obviously didn't see the fit and the need of making sure that things are put in place correctly. And should this person be up here? Yes, I would go talk to constituents and my voters as well and say, listen, this trustee obviously doesn't see eye to eye with what our goals and our visions are. Would I get into a back and forth with a trustee on the dais? No, I won't. If they don't agree with what I have to say, that's fine. I'll just say this is what it is. But I do also know how to put out my own statements. I do know how to make sure these things are acknowledged by the community so that they make informed decisions on who the next trustee of that district should be and who's going to be there to make sure that policies and things work, where we're going to disagree. That's just as common. That's going to happen in human nature. But we have to work on the commonality of students. We have to think about what are we doing for students and why we are doing that for students. And when they forget that, then they don't need to be in position or place. So I'm not going to disagree and get into a big old debate with them.
Leslie Caliano, Veterans in Politics. David, parents want to know if they're seen as true partners in their children's education, or are they just observers? Please explain your philosophy on parental rights, involvement, and outline specific ways parents should be included in educational decisions.
Well, first of all, I'm a parent of 7 children. So being a father of 7 kids, my involvement was never considered. And when I first started at Booker T Elementary with my kids, the principal started to play a song that was sexual in content, and I told him not to do that. That's not appropriate for the kids to listen to lining up to class. Did I feel involved? No, I didn't. Did I feel a part of something? No, I didn't. Did I feel the pushback? Every single day, even threatened to be arrested or trespassed off the property because I had a viewpoint that wasn't in alignment with the principal. And he said, "This is my school. You can get the bleep out of here." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll have a nice day." And obviously this principal actually ended up in a mental facility from what I understand. So, that just goes to show you that sometimes some of the picks for people, but does parents feel involved? No, they don't. The community doesn't feel involved. They don't feel that they're a part of their children's education because it's always, "Hey, we got this under control. Hey, we know what we're doing." And then if they don't want to hear what you have to say and they're just tired of listening to you rant or complain about certain things, they tell you to join the SOT. And then when you join the SOT, then they tell you that you still can't say anything about anything. So is parent involvement really an involvement? They're stakeholders. They're the reason why the district exists. If there were not parents or there were no grandparents or whoever that could be a custodian or a caregiver, this district wouldn't exist without them. So should their involvement be number one and prioritized? Yes, it should.
I have a lot to say, but I don't want to take up his time. So I do want to comment on something that technically by NRS, the superintendent is not your only employee. However, it is directed that way so that you don't end up in a hostile work environment, which is why I prefaced that question. So I won't go into all the legal things because I don't want to take up your time, but there's a lot of misinformation that's put out by NASB and actually by NRS. Are you aware that as an elected representative of the state, if you're elected in, that you are actually bound by your own attorneys in the school district? So basically, if you go to NASB and you do what they say under legal pretense and not go to your own attorney, you can actually be held in a civil capacity.
No, I didn't know that.
So that wasn't a question. That was more of a point of information.
Thank you.
So, okay, sorry. Chelsea Fisher, Nevada Veterans Association. What is your opinion? How much do you know about special education and how we handle it in public schools? And do you think it's impacting our general education classrooms?
I don't know a lot about special education. I do have a sister with Down syndrome. That's as far as special education I get because she didn't actually go to school. She couldn't retain anything for whatever reason. But I believe they're actually, in what I've seen, they're trying to make all these children special education so they can get funding in one way or another. And the reason I say that is because it starts with these IEPs. And these IEPs, they're telling them, "Oh, you have an IEP, individual educational plan learning," or whatever the case might be. And then they use that as a stepping stool to start saying, "Oh, this is what's wrong with you. This is what's wrong with you. We need another specialist for this. We need more specialists for this." Now, as far as special education information on each individual school, I have never, ever, ever had interactions with that department or that expertise in field. But can I learn? Yes, because of my children's involvement in the school and me being involved with my children, I have never, ever got into the midst of all of that with special education. I have heard a lot of horror stories from parents that have special education students, but that's as far as I've heard with special education, is just the horror stories and how they treat and what they do to these students and these parents.
Jeff Keach back here with Nevada Veterans Association, and this next question might make every hair on Chelsea's head stand straight up because the numbers might be a little inaccurate, but we're going to give it a shot here.
To the restroom.
2020, approximately 325,000 attendees and a budget of 2.8 billion. And again, if my numbers are super off, Chelsea, I'm going to run to the parking lot. Currently, that 325 has dropped to 275,000, but the budget has increased from 2.8 to 3.1 billion. What's going on with that money?
Mismanagement. And we know that because we've seen the media articles. I mean, when Pat Skorkowski was in position, somehow, I think it was somewhere close to $63 million just kind of disappeared. Nobody knew where it was at, but they magically found it. I don't know how. The money that they get into the school district, all I can go back is to mismanagement. And at the end of the day, why we see a decline is because of the curriculum and things that are not offered. These numbers, they can blame it on low birth rates. Low birth rates been since what is his name? That old man that couldn't walk. The president of the United States, that guy. You know, it's been since then. Yes, that old guy. I don't like saying his name. So, you know, the thing. Yeah, that particular one. Since, you know, and then Obama and everybody else, so low birth rates has always been around. As far as migration into our school district, are we going to see a migration take in 2030, 2031? Possibly, based on the economic development research team that they have at UNLV, but we don't know how accurate that could be. And going back to the money, when we look at money, I'm telling you right now, it's a lot of mismanagement. It's a lot of top heavy, and it's a lot of friends doing a lot of friends favor. And let me give you a really quick example. We hired a gentleman in 2000, I believe it was 13, to mentor to the kids in West Side of Las Vegas. He got $2.3 million, and all he did was mentor to 2 kids.
All right, David, we've only got about 6 or 7 minutes left, and I want to give everybody a chance to ask another question. So I'm not going to ask you for one-word answers, but we're going to cut it down to halftime, 45 seconds, so everybody could get a question in. And me and Chelsea being the worst, we'll try to keep our questions briefer than usual as well. I view the school district having certain advantages of being so big, but there's also certain disadvantages. And I think that a great solution to utilizing the strengths of having a big school district would be to give principals and more locales more control over their individual situation, because somebody in downtown Las Vegas doesn't have the same needs as somebody in Mesquite or Boulder City. So, how do you feel about that particular viewpoint, and how would a trustee be able to give more power to the locales or the principals of particular schools as opposed to having an overarching approach across all of Clark County?
Well, the power belongs to the parents and the staff at the school. They should be able to run their schools without a dictation or some kind of socialist behavior behind things. And they should be able to operate under those pretense. Now, when we start to make mass administrative positions to justify spending and everything else, is that going to help the problem? No, it doesn't help the problem. It creates more of a bigger problem, because now the parents and everybody don't feel like a part of what we going back to that conversation, a part of the school district and a part of their child's education.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Tam Larnard with Veterans in Politics International. David, as a retired middle school and high school principal, the reality is that principals sometimes have to make pretty tough decisions, especially when it comes to like a disciplinary issue with a child. And some parents refuse to respect the chain of command and will go immediately to you. When that happens, I'm not even going to say if, when that happens, what exactly or how exactly will you handle that situation, and what protocols do you think would be appropriate when a parent just constantly comes to you rather than all of the other people, whether the principal or above the principal?
Well, all principals are not created equal. So, there's a human element behind each and every one. They have different ideology, whatever the case might be. But if a parent does come to me, which they have in the past, what I do is I tend to orchestrate a meeting with the principal to talk about, where the breakdowns were and where the information was misunderstood. Then I go over the policy with the parent and say, this is exactly what it states and what it says. And by you enrolling your student in the school district, you agree to this policy and to adhere by it. As far as overstepping the boundaries and trying to bully a principal, that's over the line. That should never happen, and it will never happen in my preview. I would always make sure that I communicate with that principal to make sure that they understand that this person came to me and that what can we do together to make sure that we make this parent feel like a part of this school district.
Again, Patrick McCray, Nevada Veterans Association. Reading the tea leaves, I think you're going to run into budget shortfalls. Please
Really
explain to
big
me your
ones.
approach on budget shortfalls and what priorities would you set? Why?
On the budget shortfalls, we're going to see some really big numbers coming this next year. And I think it's somewhere in the 50 millions, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to have to go to legislation and go talk about the things we need and make sure. But again, going back to that, it's all about management. And I think that instead of them hiring somebody like Dr. Alberry to manage the board of trustees and dictate to them what they need to do on governing policy, they need to make sure that they inform them on, go to the superintendent and all their team and teach them and other principals how to manage these budgets correctly so that things work out correctly with money. As far as elongating this conversation, I would have to just leave that where it's at because we have to get through this.
Sounds to me like you're saying educate the educators.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I know Leslie Caliano, Veterans in Politics. Your answers will be short, I'm sure. Should Title IX be enforced, or should boys be allowed to play in girls' sports? And will you look to remove DEI or whatever they're calling it now that still exists within the school district?
No, it should not be in place. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it shouldn't be in place. To remove DEI and all that stuff, yes, they found a very safe name to use it. They call it Safe and Respectable Learning Environments. So they just changed the name of it to something else to make sure that they align with making sure they get money from the federal government. So as far as removing a lot of that stuff, yes, I don't want any of that in place, and I will stand on that, and I will not change my answer on that. Not now, not ever, and not even if they offered me the whole school district as a pocket change for me. Oh, Title IX, you're going to have to help me with that one because I've got a lot of titles in my head.
Title IX is boys and girls sports separately, strictly. Do you?
No, you're just going to remove it. We got to fight to remove
So
that.
Title IX is what we want, but boys and girls sports goes against Title IX, and that is what everyone is talking about.
Or if Title
removing
IX, I'm sorry, I'm like, forgive me.
I
I have a
understand.
lot of things I do as far as being in this part of the education and helping a lot of parents and figuring things out. As far as Title IX, if it's going to support removing boys and girls sports, then I'm going to go with that. And then I also have to read it. I got to make sure I read it and understand it correctly because I'm not just going to say, yes, let's do Title IX. And I don't know the full demographics of all the information that could be present. That could be a loophole or something that could presently open up a door that I do not want open.
Chelsea Fisher, Nevada Veterans Association. What is your opinion of how the agendas are put out both to the public and as a board? And more specifically, your opinion on if there is or is not issues within the consent agendas?
Ooh, that's a lot of problems. So yes, there is issues in the consent agendas. How the board presents it, I can't recall this. Don't quote me. I think it's 13 days prior to it being released. They're supposed to make sure that it's up in public libraries or wherever they need to make sure that it's up at. But they use the excuse that, it's there online, and most people are not tech savvy. They don't understand how to use a lot of that stuff, and they don't understand the agendas and how to use the little Z or whatever it is that they use as an icon on there. As far as, is the public informed about that correctly? No, they're not. They are not. As far as the consent agendas, they just found a way to make sure that people that know people get paid whatever they want to get paid. And they just run through it. And some of that has to do with the budget, and some of it has to do with some of the line items that most people do not agree with.
David, I think final question here, Jeff, back with Nevada Veterans Association. What would you remove from teachers' workload tomorrow so that they can teach more effectively next week?
I don't know if I can remove anything from there. But if it was up to me, the workload, I would make sure that teachers didn't have to spend time educating a student that actually, I have nothing against migrants that come into the school, but they need to work on teaching the curriculum and the students that they have there. And that actually puts a damper and drain on a lot of them, because now they're trying to pick up where the elementary left off and didn't finish, and now the middle school now has to deal with that, and it puts a big damper on them on that. I would focus on how to make sure we manage that correctly so that it doesn't put a big strain on the classroom when it comes to classroom time and education, because disruption of the classroom time is against the law.
All right, David. First of all, thank you very much for joining us. I think it means a lot, just you being here and your opponent not being here.
She's right here.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to give you 60 to 90 seconds. You could address the panelists or you could address the voters themselves, and just once again, introduce yourself, or after this experience, why do you think you're the person we should be voting for CCSD District D trustee?
Well, I'm David Gomez, running for CCSD District Trustee for Clark County School District. Why you should vote for me, and what I believe why you should vote for me, is because, number one, I have an open door policy for everything. If someone has a complaint or issue, they can come to me at any given time, and I don't close my door and make excuses on why I can't help that candidate or that person as a candidate or even as an elected official. When we're talking about dealing with my time and my tenure in with the school district as a volunteer, you got to have the right passion to do this. You got to be able and willing to stand there and take the heat from even the administration, the parents, or whoever the case might be, and not just shut them down at the first sign of danger or threats or whatever they might say to you. Am I always going to be there for the students? Yes. The teachers? Yes. The support staff? Yes, I am. And the principals. Am I going to look at everything in alignment with facts and law? Yes, I am. But there are some laws, obviously, that I was just informed on that, we do have a lot more power and capacity to do when it comes to making sure we're informed correctly. So am I going to take those measures? Yes, I am. But as a trustee, I promise that I will listen to you. I will hear everything you have to say, and I will address it in any which way that is appropriate to make sure it's being addressed correctly.
David, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Tam, Jeff, Leslie, Chelsea, and Pat, thank you very much for being panelists, and Mark Jonas for being our engineer, and Philip Washington for doing the invocation. We would also like to recognize and thank all of our sponsors once again: Judge Mary Perry, Clark County District Court Family Division Department P; Christine Brewer, Clark County District Court Family Division Department S; Veterans in Politics International, Nevada Veterans Association, and of course our additional sponsoring partners for their leadership, support, and dedication to veterans and to the integrity of the non-judicial process. Thanks again for all of your professionalism, respect, and participation. Have a great day.
Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, live stream on Facebook.